Hello, I am back and we're going to read all about frogs and toads. And if you said in the that this book would be nonfiction, you're absolutely correct. And we have a variety of reasons why. We have captions, we have an index, we have a glossary, we have photographs. All of those things tell us, even before we've read the book, that this is nonfiction. These are things that can be proven. All right. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to, we're going to start off with the SWOBOT. Say SWOBOT. Students will be able to find the main idea and details. So, we're looking for, why did the author write the story? What was the reason? What was the purpose that this author wrote this book? What was the main idea of the passage? And then we're going to look for details. Details are those supports that prove what the main idea is about. So we're going to be looking for the main idea and then the details that prove that we are correct with what our thoughts are on them over the main idea of frogs and toads. All right, so let's get started. Frogs and toads. Again, we've already gone through the table of contents. I found a frog, page 4. Life cycle, page 7. About frogs, 9. Defense, page 12. Frogs are cool, page 15. And again, if we need to look up something, or if you're coming to a word and you're not familiar with that word, you could look in the glossary. Those are those dark or those highlighted words, those black bold-faced print words can be found on 16. And then index. Let's say you just want to look up something. You can go to the index. I found a frog, exclamation mark. And this is known as, and I'm going to write it up here. Who can tell me what this is known as? Okay, yes, it is known as the, let's see if I can get it to write. I don't know why my pen's not working. Oh, here, maybe this is the problem. All right. Heading. It's known as the what? The heading. So I found a frog is known as the heading of this particular page. Okay, so the heading. Let's read it. Have you ever seen an unusual animal in nature? Did you want to learn more about it? Last week I saw a really neat frog, and that was the start of a wonderful adventure. What does the word unusual mean? What does that word unusual mean? All right. Can anybody think of a synonym? Okay, if I had to come up with a synonym, I would say different. Okay, it is unusual. It's different. It's not your normal or your typical frog. Then down here we have a question. It says, what does a frog say when it sees something great? Okay, this is a joke, and it says, totally awesome. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, and right here it says, right here's a caption, okay? And remember, I'm going to write caption. A caption describes the what? Caption describes the photograph. All right, and it's going to describe, this caption's describing this photograph. It says, I took this picture of the frog I saw. So she's saying this frog is what? Unusual. And we said unusual means what? Means different. For some reason, she thinks this frog looks unusual. All right, let's read to find out what she found out. All right. I looked for the frog in a book called a field guide. And we remember what we said a field guide is. It's a book that tells you information about animals. I started looking through the pictures in the book. I was amazed to see all the different kinds of frogs and toads. It turns out I saw a wood frog. So she went through her field guide and she figured out that what she was actually looking at was a wood frog. So what kind of frog is this? This would be a wood frog. And how did she find out that it was a wood frog? She used what? She used a field. Sorry, I misspelled that. She used a field guide. And the field guide told her what? By looking through the pictures, she discovered what her frog was known as, and that is a wood frog. All right, now we have another photograph, and we've got a caption over here, all right? And we know what a caption is. It describes this photograph. And it looks like this is a what? This is known as a scale, okay? He is weighing this frog right here, and it says, the Goliath frog is the largest frog in the world. And if I look at the scale, I can kind of see that it's pointing between, this is a 6 and a 7. So it might weigh about 6.5 pounds. Wow, that is one big frog. Did you know there are almost 5,000 kinds of frogs and toads? The biggest one is as big as a dinner plate. One of the smallest is the Brazilian gold frog. Its real size is here. So right here is almost like a diagram, and it's showing you a visual of just how teeny tiny the Brazilian gold frog is. It's so little and cute. And then you've got the Goliath frog, and it's large, and it weighs about 6.5 pounds, and it's the largest frog is the size of a dinner plate. I wanted to know more, so I went to the internet. Did you know that frogs and toads are relatives to newts? So what does it mean when it says relatives? What do you think that means? And so they're relatives of newts and salamanders. What does it mean to have relatives? That's right. Those are people that are related to you, family members that are related to you by blood. That means that part of their gene pool, you might have your mom's brother or sister may have had kids, and those are called cousins, and you're all related. They're all amphibians. Whoa, there's that one, another one of those words. Amphibians is called amphibians. And it gives us the definition right there, which means they live part of their life in water and part on land. So, frogs and toads are relatives of newts and salamanders. Frogs, toads, newts, salamanders are all called what? That's right, they're all known as amphibians, which means they spend part of their life in the water and another part of their life on land. Let's continue on. Amphibians. So, it's giving us more information. So we know that amphibians do what? That's right. They live on land and water. And they're also cold-blooded. They're cold-blooded animals. And that's not what humans are. We're not cold-blooded. We're warm-blooded. And let's find out what it means to be cold-blooded. They don't make their own body heat. They get warmth from the heat of the sun. So think about that. Think about how cold it is today. What if we had to rely on the heat to warm our bodies on the sun? Would we be living in Ohio? And if we were, would we be active? Would we be moving? It's pretty cold out. So cold-blooded animals don't produce their own body heat. They get it from an outside source known as the That's right, the sun. And animals, like humans, we're warm-blooded, and our bodies stay about the same temperature unless you have a fever and your body's trying to fight off some type of infection. Life cycle. Remember, we talked about this. This C is followed by a Y, so it makes that soft C sound. So it says, and then the Y says cycle, life cycle. I also learned that most frogs and toads lay jelly-covered eggs in water. The babies that hatch are called tadpoles. So when the frogs and toads have babies and they hatch them, and when we know that they are hatched, they are born from a egg, okay? So right here we've got an egg. If we look at this picture here, they start off as eggs and they hatch. And when they hatch, then they become known as the tadpole. So this is part of the cycle. So this is stage 1. This is the second stage they go through. And look how very different. They start off looking like this, and then eventually they look like this. It says tadpole. Okay, I also learned that most frogs and toads lay jelly-covered eggs in water. The babies that hatch are called tadpoles and look like little fish. Tadpoles breathe with, so how do tadpoles breathe? They breathe with gills, just like a fish, and they live in water. But it's amazing what happens as they grow. Again, this is showing a lot of excitement because what does it end with? It ends with an exclamation mark, and an exclamation mark shows strong emotion. So it's amazing. It's not something that you typically see. It's amazing what happens next. So they start off with what? They start off with jelly-covered eggs in the water. When they hatch, they look more like a fish. And they breathe through what? That's right, gills, just like fish. Let's find out what happens next. Their gills disappear. When something disappears, it goes away. So these tadpoles, okay, breathe out of their gills, but then they disappear. So their gills disappear and they grow what we use to breathe, and that is known as lungs. So they can breathe air like other land animals. So they start off in the water and they have the gills and they disappear so that now they become more like what type of animal? Like a land animal. They grow legs and then arms. Okay, so we're looking here. Here's your tadpole. It looks like it's got something that resembles a leg there. But look here. It's starting to grow those legs and arms. Later, their tail will shrink. So when something shrinks, okay, when something shrinks, it gradually goes away. So shrinks. It's something that goes or gets smaller with time. All right, so they grow legs and arms. Later, their tail shrinks. By the time their tail is gone, so eventually it goes away, they move on to land. So when you see, if you see a frog or a toad out on land, it's not going to have a what? A tail anymore, all right? I saw some very cool photographs of the life cycle of frogs and toads. Again, remember a cycle. It goes in stages. We start off with egg. This is the first part. Then it goes into a tadpole, then a metamorph, then a frog. Okay, and then it starts over again. Then this toad's going to have eggs, and the cycle keeps repeating itself. Going on. Look at this. This is known as a what? About frogs is called a heading. So we're going to learn about what? That's right, frogs. Frogs are famous for their ability to leap from their long, strong back legs. They leap to catch insects and other prey. A frog can catch an insect in an instant with its long, sticky tongue. So as we can see here, we're talking about leaping, okay? So it's like almost, they're not flying, but it almost looks like their body is jumping. The whole body is jumping, like it's almost like it's flying, but it's not quite flying. It uses its black legs to make it propel to go forward into the air. Then it sticks out its tongue, and it refers to the tongue as sticky. Okay, and when something's sticky, things get put on the tongue and are unable to get away because it's almost like glue. All right, sticky. And it can do it in an instant. When this word here, instant, that means like within a second. A frog can catch an insect in an instant because we know how fast an insect can move. It propels its body and then it takes its tongue and captures that insect with its tongue. All right. The eyes and nostrils of a frog are on top of its head. Frogs can see, smell, and breathe while they're mostly underwater. In fact, they breathe through their skin while they're underwater. Wow. So do they breathe out of their nose when they're in water? No, out of their skin while they're underwater. So their eyes and nostrils of a frog are on the top of the head. So right here are their eyes. And they can see, smell, breathe while they're mostly. When we see that word mostly, that doesn't mean their entire body is under the water. Most of it is underwater. Frogs can make an amazing amount of noise. Male frogs sing loudly to attract a mate. So when a male frog sees a female frog and is interested, that frog will make a lot of noise. And then it says, what has more lives than a cat? A frog. Because it does what? It croaks. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Every night. All right. Remember, the word croaks is just the sound that they make. It's that word croaks is an onomatopoeia, words that sound like their meanings. Let's get to everybody say onomatopoeia. All right, we learned about that earlier this year. All right, ooh, this looks like a chart that we've made, and that is a compare and contrast chart. All right, so we got frogs here and toads here. We can see how they're alike and how they are different. Do you know the differences between frogs and toads? Here's what I learned from a book at the library. Frogs, smooth and slimy skin. And look here, dry, bumpy skin. Lives in wet places, live in dry places. Long, strong back legs for leaping. So the frogs leap where these toads have strong back legs for what? Walking. Webbed feet. Most of them have webbed feet to help them swim. No webbing on feet. Lay in groups, lay eggs in long chains. So actually, all of these are not, we're not saying how they're alike, we're saying how they are different. So we're contrasting. This is how they are different. I'm sorry, I said compare and contrast. This is just how they are different. How they are different. Defense. All right, we talked about the word defense. So what we compared it to was sports, and that we said that when we're on a team and we don't want the other team to score, we're going to play defense. So let's see what this type of defense. Remember, this is called a heading. And let's read about this heading. I was sad to learn that frogs and toads are food for many other animals. Bats, snakes, birds, and rodents all hunt for them. But frogs and toads have clever ways to stay safe from animals that might try to eat them. All right. So we know that they are prey. That means that when they're prey to that means that it's food for bats, snakes, birds, and rodents. Rodents are like your mice and anything that's related to mice. All right, here's another joke. What happens when frogs park illegally? They get towed away. And again, ha, ha, ha. Some frogs and toads, like the wood frog I saw, are the same color as their habitat. Remember, habitat's where they live. It's their environment. So the wood frog kind of had a lot of brown. So I would say its environment, he must be surrounded by a lot of browns. All right, I'm back. I had to take a break. I think we left off here. Some kinds of frogs are so poisonous that just touching their skin is, look at this word, deadly. These frogs are brightly colored to warn predators to stay away. So if you come across a brightly colored frog, you need to do what? You need to stay, oh, it doesn't want to write. Well, hold on. You want to, you're going to want to stay away. Oh, and I can't, all right. You're going to want to stay away. I'm not going to write anything. So these predators want to attack the frog, but they are warned not to because of the fact that they are poisonous. And just by touching their skin, it's deadly. That means you would die if you touch their skin, and you don't want to do that. Do you know one golden poisonous frog contains enough poison to kill 10 people or 20,000 mice? This frog is the most poisonous animal, or it says this frog is one of the most poisonous animals on earth. So this particular golden frog here can kill 10 people or 20,000 mice. And we know this is a photograph, and whenever there is a photograph, there is a caption. It said the golden poisonous frog lives in South American rainforest. Do we live in South America? No. But if you ever travel outside the United States and you find yourself in South America and you see a frog that looks like this, you're going to want to stay away because their skin is extremely deadly. That has enough poison that it can kill 10 people or 20,000 mice. Some frogs try to trick predators. They might want to eat them. Some frogs try to trick predators that might want to eat them. The tomato frog puffs up like a balloon when a snake gets near. The snake thinks the frog is too big to eat. If the snake tries to eat it anyway, the frog leaks a liquid like glue from its skin. So the tomato frog lives, here's the caption, the tomato frog lives in an island off the coast of Africa. So are we going to come across one of these frogs in the United States? No. But if you ever find yourself in Africa, or maybe if you go to a zoo, you might be able to find one of these tomato frogs. Again, how do they protect themselves? They protect themselves by puffing up like a balloon, and then the snake thinks it's too big to eat. And if it does get to eat it anyway, it will produce glue like, or a liquid like glue from its skin. That does not sound appetizing. All right, frogs are cool! Exclamation mark. Why do we have exclamation marks? An exclamation mark shows strong emotion. Frogs are cool. When they say cool, what do they really mean? I think they think that they are interesting. Interesting, not cool as in how they feel, but they're interesting to learn about. Frogs and toads come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. You can find them in trees in or near water, and on the ground. One thing is true about all of them. They're amazing animals. What kinds of frogs have you seen? All right, one question I have for you says one thing that is true about all of them. They're amazing animals. Is that a fact? Can you prove that something is amazing? Or is that an opinion? Something that someone or a group of people might believe but cannot be proven. All right, this is not a fact. That is an opinion. All right, so let's look up here. There's a caption here. It says tree frogs have sticky pads on their fingertips and toes to help them grip. So right around here, it's sticky so that they can grip and they can hold on to trees. Another joke. Why are frogs so happy? They eat whatever bugs them. All right, so ha, ha, ha. Funny, funny. All right, and then we're back to the glossary and again, the index. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to read through it. We're just going to read through it this time, just reading all the words. And then I'm going to have a set of questions that I will have for you to answer. I found a frog. Have you ever seen an unusual animal in nature? Did you want to learn more about it? Last week, I saw a really neat frog, and that was the start of a wonderful adventure. What does a frog say when he sees something great? Totally awesome! Ha ha. I took a picture of the frog I saw. I looked for the frog in the book called a field guide. I started looking through the pictures in the book. I was amazed to see all the different kinds of frogs and toads. It turns out I saw a wood frog. Did you know there are almost 5,000 kinds of frogs and toads? The biggest one is as big as a dinner plate. One of the smallest is the Brazilian gold frog. Its real size is shown here. I wanted to know more, so I went to the internet. Did you know that frogs and toads are relatives of newts and salamanders? They're all amphibians, which means they live part of their life in water and part on land. Amphibians are cold-blooded animals. They don't make their own body heat. They get warmth from the heat of the sun. Life cycle. I also learned that most frogs and toads lay jelly-covered eggs in water. The babies that hatch are called tadpoles and look like little fish. Tadpoles breathe with gills just like fish, and they live in water. But it's amazing what happens as they grow. Egg stage, tadpole stage. Their gills disappear and they grow long so that they can breathe air like other land animals. They grow legs and then arms. Later, their tail shrinks. By the time their tail is gone, they move on to land. I saw some very cool photos of the life cycle of frogs and toads. Life cycle of frogs. Tadpoles, metamorph, frog, egg. About frogs. Frogs are famous for their ability to leap with their long, strong back legs. They leap to catch insects and other prey. A frog can catch an insect in an instant with its long, sticky tongue. Why are frogs so good at baseball? Because they catch a lot of flies. The eyes and nostrils of a frog are on top of its head. Frogs can see, smell, and breathe while they're mostly underwater. In fact, they breathe through their skin while they're underwater. Frogs can make an amazing amount of noise. Male frogs sing loudly to attract a mate. Do you know male frogs use throat punches to sing, do you know male frogs use throat pouches to sing? Some male frogs have one throat pouch and others have two. What has more lives than a cat? A frog. It croaks every night. Do you know the differences between frogs and toads? Here's what I learned from a book at the library. Frogs, smooth, slimy skin, live in wet places. Long, strong back legs for leaping. Webbed feet most. Lay eggs in groups. Toads, dry, bumpy skin. Live in dry places. Shorter back legs for walking. No webbing on feet. Lay eggs on long chains. Defense. I was sad to learn that frogs and toads are food for many other animals. Bats, snakes, birds, and rodents all hunt them. But frogs and toads have clever ways to stay safe from animals that might try to eat them. The frog wasn't able to escape. What happens when frogs park illegally? They get towed away. Some frogs and toads, like the wood frog I saw, are the same color as their habitat. This is called blending in. It allows them to hide better from predators. Some kinds of frogs are so poisonous that just touching their skin is deadly. These frogs are brightly colored to warn predators to stay away. Do you know one golden poison frog contains enough poison to kill 10 people or 20,000 mice? This frog is one of the most poisonous animals on Earth. The golden poisonous frog lives in South America. Some frogs try to trick predators that might want to eat them. The tomato frog puffs up like a balloon when a snake gets near. The snake thinks the frog is too big to eat. If the snake tries to eat it anyway, the frog leaks a liquid like glue from its skin. The tomato frog lives in an island off the coast of Africa. Frogs are cool. Okay, and that's its heading. Frogs and toads come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. You can find them in trees or near water and on the ground. One thing is true about all of them. They're amazing animals. What kinds of frogs have you seen? All right, and then we're back to the glossary. Ability, a skill or talent. Field guide, a book that helps people identify living things in nature. Habitat, the environment in which an animal lives. Predators, animals that hunt and eat other animals. Prey, animals that are food for predators. Rodents, mice, and their cousins. Index, this is where you can look up something. If you want to learn about amphibians, page 6, blending in, 13, breathing, 10. Eggs can be found on 7, 8, 11. Newts can be found on 6. Poisonous frogs on 13. Salamanders on page 6. And hadbolls are on both 7 and 8. All right, so some of these words can be found on multiple pages. All right, as I said, read it again, get really familiar with it because I'm going to have some questions that you're going to have to answer, and I will upload those in a minute. Have a great remainder of your day, and I will see you soon.